Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to those of you around the world. Welcome to the daily Trade the Chain crypto update, where we give you everything you need to know for the next 24 hours and hopefully the next few days. Today is Tuesday, December 6th, and we are not much better off than we were yesterday. Sentiment is more or less unchanged. Both Ethereum and Bitcoin hourly and daily sentiment, both underneath the 50 level, still kind of in neutral, but Ethereum hourly sentiment is bearish and not too much positivity across the charts, although we do have a few outliers. Sol up on the week, Tron pretty much flat, and then the rest are, somewhere in between. So one place I want to start first is what I mentioned about equities yesterday. If you will recall, when we spoke yesterday, equities were right around the 39.90 level. And I did say to not be shocked if we are either at the exact same price or lower towards the lower end of the trend. And look where we're at today. It's about lunchtime Eastern time, and equities are at the recent lows that they faced last week. So where does that leave us for movement going forward? Well, you could potentially have a swing failure pattern here where, obviously we have support at this level right around this POC. We could have a swing failure pattern up and glide back into the trend and attack that 4K level again. And of course, we would have to then flip that 4K level into support to then move higher. And of course, we could, typically what you'll see in this type of formation is, actually, let me zoom in a little bit, is price will then reattack the trend. And let me just make sure that we're configured here. So price will reattack the trend, make a decision here, and either get rejected or flow back up towards that target. So there's your kind of potential price movement if 39.50 ends up holding, but there is still potential that this level just completely breaks. We are very oversold. The market looks like crap, so we have to consider this. And there is a potential that this breaks. If it breaks, then we're headed to 3,900. I would definitely expect a bounce at 3,900. And then this would be support again. Nice little smiley face there. He's kind of crying because prices are moving lower. And then once we got here, we would either bust back up or bust lower. So just given the steep drop in equities today, I would not expect further drop, but it is 100% plausible. So we have to be aware that 3,900 could definitely be tagged by this evening or tomorrow morning. But it would really shock me if we don't have some sort of come to Jesus moment, at least going into the end of the trading day, where we at least reattack the top of this trend and either, move higher or move lower. And then we'll have to decide what things look like at that point. They obviously don't look good. So it would not shock me to see 375, 370, and then drop to 3,900, but we'll have to see what happens. So knowing that equities are potentially in a short-term bottom or in a more precarious or they are in a precarious scene, but they could either be at a short-term bottom or setting up for another leg lower. Let's look at crypto and Ethereum daily sentiment, obviously not looking hot. And, one-day sentiment not looking very hot either. And then we have Bitcoin sentiment, which is, kind of neutral to bullish, but hourly sentiment, not very positive, has been unable to make it back into bullish territory. And of course, we are consolidating, not even looking at the chart, you can see that price is coiling up quite a good deal here and has been for the past 24 hours. So expecting a movement soon. Dollar index is still hovering right around where it was yesterday, just underneath that 200-day moving average on the daily chart. If we look at 4-hour, get a bit better of a zoom, it's kind of moving. It's trying to move back into the range. Like we said, it could definitely still be rejected at this 105.6 number. But if it does make it back into the range, this is basically just a swing failure pattern. And then if it does confirm, I'd say, get above 105.6, get above these moving averages. If that happens, then it's probably going to end up moving to 108. Potentially as high as 109, at least initially. I would say probably 108 would be better, just because that's right at previous resistance. It'll coincide with the 200 moving average. But again, dollar index moving up like that will definitely not be good for risk markets, especially equities. So, and you know, maybe I spoke too soon. You know, we were forming what could have been a nice little, you know, potentially helpful swing failure pattern candle there, and you know, we're moving lower. So very, very precarious position there for equities. Now looking at Bitcoin, zooming out, you know, so where we were yesterday when we spoke was actually still, you know, right around the lower end of the range. I think we were just up here. It had not, you know, had this swing failure pattern yet, but we did say that the lower end of the range was likely. We are at the lower end of the range. And of course, there is still another area that we have not tested yet that dates back to the Wednesday lows of last week, so nearly a week ago, and we are hovering above this 200-day moving average. So basically supports is 16.9 plus this 200-day moving average. VWAP has currently been resistance and has been for several hours. And you know, we are coiling up like we mentioned in the sentiment chart. So typically a symmetrical triangle, which this is, will push to continuation, which means to the downside. And, you know, not perfect, obviously, but that's typically how you would look at this formation. Of course, it has to break beneath 16.9 to head lower. If it can hold 16.9, then I think, you know, obviously 17.1 is an obvious example. If you can get above 17.1, then 17.4 is, pardon me, your next target, but we have to hold 16.9 to do so. So the one thing you'll note is that, you know, Bitcoin has not dropped while equities have been dropping. And I think that's, you know, very important to note. We started dropping around 6 a.m. Pacific time, 9 a.m. Eastern time. And if you look at the exact same time frame for Bitcoin, there was a drop, but it was quickly bought back up. And then we've been stuck in this little mini range for the time being. So it's not, you know, I think many people, you can look at this two ways. One, Bitcoin and risk, crypto will catch up to equities on a delayed fashion, typically around the daily close. We'll see that. Or crypto is holding up stronger versus equities and thus will recover stronger whenever equities end up finding that local bottom. So I think you should really be looking at both sides of the coins. Your trigger should be equities starting to form a bottom for potential longs for Bitcoin. Your short trigger would be equities continuing lower, breaking beneath the current support level that we lined out, which is, you know, where it's currently sitting right around 39.50, you know, as low as 39.40. So if equities break beneath that, I would expect crypto to likely at least try to make an attempt lower, potentially gets bought back up, but that would be likely. And then if equities end forming a bottom here, or at least a short-term bottom, and then try to attack that 39.70, 39.75, potentially 4K number, then I think that would be a good trigger for equities long. Looking at Bitcoin or looking at Ethereum, very similar outlook compared to Bitcoin. You know, not a symmetrical triangle, actually a descending triangle, as we can see here. And typically these will end up breaking lower. It's not a wedge, it's a triangle. So you would typically expect this to probably head back down to 1230 and then maybe bounce back up 1250 to test that as support. But of course, that 1250 has to be broken for that to occur. And if 1250 holds, then we're probably headed back up to 1280 for some potential ping pong, or maybe it gets overzealous and reattacks 1300. But again, very similar to equities, or very similar to Bitcoin, I should say, you know, depending on what movement equities make, I think that will be a trigger for Bitcoin and or Ethereum. And of course, you know, we've seen most of that interesting volatility occur around the daily close. So the fact that we saw our volatility in the morning, right after open, we didn't see much volatility and we're hovering in this very tight window. You know, typically based on previous price action, all of that comes around the daily close. You know, that's daily close, daily close. Look at all the volatility around the daily close. So don't count out the daily close as your trigger for a move, depending on where momentum is based on equities, and which is based on the dollar. So we kind of know exactly where we're moving. We don't have really any market impactful news. You know, nothing crazy today. We have jobless claims tomorrow that will probably push price around, depending on if it's a beat or a miss. 230K is the number. And then we have PPI on Friday. I'm sorry, we have initial jobless claims are on Thursday, not tomorrow. We have PPI on Friday, which is an inflation metric. That should also bring some volatility there. But I have a feeling we will be in a holding pattern until the daily close, unless equities continue their free fall, which will likely drag crypto down or prove its strength if it cannot bust beneath the ranges we define. So good luck, happy trading. For not in the Trade the Chain community, you're missing out on all the morning, afternoon, and evening updates that we place in there in regard to trading cryptocurrencies and fundamentals, as well as everything that's going on from the macro perspective. So go to tradethechain.com for your 14-day free trial. And we will see you tomorrow, same time, same place. Good luck and happy trading.